Let's focus now on the story we're breaking on centre stage tonight. Sources in the Ministry of External Affairs telling us that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is likely to reach out to Nawaz Sharif. Joining us now, two people who cover the Ministry of External Affairs very, very closely. Jyoti Malhotra, senior writer with India Today magazine, and my colleague Smita Sharma. I want to go across to Jyoti first. Where did this plan come about from? When is this conversation likely to happen? And what is the Prime Minister likely to say, Jyoti?
Rahul, first of all, the story is coming out of the Prime Minister's office or the Ministry of External Affairs, both in South Block. The idea is for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to call the Pakistan Prime Minister hopefully tonight and to express the outrage as well as India's grief at the horrific incidents in Peshawar, at the Peshawar school. And I'm not sure what else Prime Minister Modi is going to say, but I think the fact that he is reaching out, and I think on behalf of India, he is expressing India's grief and India's outrage at this this incident. And I think in a sense, I hope that the Prime Minister will also offer on behalf of the country any help that India can do, whether it's in terms of blood supplies or anything else. Of course, the bigger questions remain. I know we have all those questions in our minds about whether the Pakistan army or the Pakistan state or the deep state that we like to call it, whether they have learnt their lessons of not playing the good terrorist versus the bad terrorist.
Okay, stay with me, Jyoti. Tariq Nazim is the spokesperson of the PMNL. He's joining us now from Pakistan. Mr. Nazim, we're hearing that the Indian Prime Minister wants to reach out to his Pakistani counterpart. Could you tell us whether this conversation is likely to happen this evening? We're also receiving word just now that General Raheel Sharif, the chief of the Pakistani army, has tweeted just moments before now to say, "Dear people of Pakistan, stand and support the Pak army in the operations at the Zarb-e-Azb and the Khyber. We will surely eliminate the TTP from our homeland." And he says in the next line that the Pak army has launched massive airstrikes in Khyber on intelligence reports. More than 10 strikes have been carried out in the last 1 hour. This coming straight from the Pakistan Army's chief, who clearly is under a lot of pressure to exact revenge. Several calls in Pakistan that this must be avenged, the TTP must be brought down. Smita Sharma has been speaking also to her sources in Pakistan. Smita, has this call been scheduled? Do we know whether it will take place tonight? Will it happen tomorrow morning? What are people in Pakistan telling you about this intended outreach by the Indian Prime Minister? Smita.
Well, Rahul, as far as this call scheduling is concerned, what my sources are saying is they're looking at an early opportunity possible. This possibly might be tonight or even tomorrow morning, but for sure this will be happening in the next few hours. And Narendra Modi expected to, of course, condemn this terrorist attack, which he already called cowardly in his tweets earlier in the strongest possible word. He also earlier in his statement, of course, mentioned that this is an unspeakable act, of such brutality. So clearly Narendra Modi would, of course, be condemning this act of terrorism that has shaken up the world, and those horrific images coming out, of course, playing out on television screens through the day. But also, as far as that cooperation on terrorism is concerned, we do not know if there will really be any sort of exchange of word, translating it into action, really. Because remember, even when Pakistan was undergoing those massive floods, Narendra Modi had, from a public forum in the UNG, extended all possible help to Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, but also, in fact, in return, offered help as well for Jammu and Kashmir, which was flooded as well. But beyond those words, literally, we did not see much cooperation happen. But clearly, this will be a personal condolence message and the strongest condemnation coming out from the Prime Minister's office and Narendra Modi himself in the next few hours.
Joining us now is Asad Omar. He's a spokesperson for the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Imran Khan's party, that actually runs the area around Peshawar where this blast happened. Mr. Omar, what I was particularly disturbed about in the reaction that came from Imran Khan was that he said whoever is responsible for this cowardly attack. We've seen over the past several months Imran Khan try and reach out to the Taliban. Even after 130 kids were killed, he refused to name the Taliban as the ones responsible for the Peshawar attack, Mr. Omar.
I don't think you have seen the statements which have come out. If they're available on Twitter also, they're running on Pakistani media. He has named them and condemned them. The TTP by name has been condemned. That's already been done both on social media as well as the mainstream media. And Imran Khan has done it personally, and all the main top leaders of India, including myself, have done that.
Okay, will we see still, even after this attack, an attempt made by your party and Pakistan to distinguish and differentiate between the so-called good Taliban and the bad Taliban? Or has at least now a realization dawned that there is no good or bad Taliban? They're the Taliban, they're barbarians, they're terrorists, and they need to be taken down, sir.
That distinction is always made in both societies. There are bad guys and then there are bad guys. And you try and minimize the enemies that you have to fight with, and you always try and create a situation where you can create divisions amongst the ranks of your enemy, which is what was attempted, and it worked. Some of the major mainstream groups supporting the Taliban broke away from them as a result of the talks. And after that, the military operation was launched against a weaker, smaller enemy, and it's been a very successful strategy, and that has worked and will continue to be pursued, and will be successful. It has been successful, and will be pursued until total victory.
Well, you're saying you will continue to look at shades of the Taliban. Thank you very much, Asad Umar, for joining us. Sadia Khan is the spokesperson of Nawaz Sharif's party. She's joining us now on this broadcast. Ms. Khan, our thoughts and prayers with the people of Pakistan for what happened, and I want to understand from you about this proposed call between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Pakistani counterpart. Can you confirm whether this call will happen tonight? What are you expecting will emerge from this conversation, ma'am?
First of all, it's very unfortunate day in the history of Pakistan, and I feel like anyone who have heart and any person who have wisdom, everybody is mourning over that, and everybody is condemning this brutal act by terrorists. And so far, this unfortunate incident, Prime Minister of Pakistan rushed to Peshawar, KPK province, and he was getting info of each and every second there. And not only this, but we were receiving messages from all over the world. We have received messages, first of all, from British Prime Minister, and later on the other president and prime ministers of leaders of different countries. And the Prime Minister of India has also shown his concern. He really condemned that. So far I know that. But still I can't confirm over his upcoming telephone call to Prime Minister of Pakistan over this, for condolence of this incident. I'm not sure about, I've not seen any information from our media cell.
You know, ma'am, one of the realities of Pakistan is that just in March this year, Tehreek-e-Taliban Insaf Chief Imran Khan wanted the Taliban to open an office in Peshawar. Now, it's in Peshawar that you've been attacked. So many young kids dying. I was just speaking to the spokesperson of Imran Khan's party. He says they will continue to distinguish between the so-called good and the bad Taliban. Will that be Nawaz Sharif's policy as well, or at least after this death, there is now a realization that you cannot distinguish between the good and the bad Taliban?
I think you are mixing two different situations. First of all, about statement of head of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Mr. Imran Khan, he can better tell about his demand. What were consequences when he that statement? I can't comment on that, and I think any person from his party can better tell you about its details. Plus, on matter of terrorism, every political party of Pakistan and ruling party, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, we all are on same page. And today you can see that as KPK province is governed by PTI administration, and everybody was in town and everybody was crying over that brutal act of terrorism on innocent souls, 126 innocent souls in Peshawar. And the second, your second query about that bad and good and bad Taliban, there is no discrimination of being good and bad between terrorism of Taliban and their insurgencies in my country, in my beloved country. Because, I mean, whosoever is involved in eradication of peace in the country, who are destroying law and order situations, who who are taking innocent souls from us. Like today's incident, everybody have seen that whatever happened, and the nation is passing through a big tragedy today. So there is no concept of good and bad Taliban.
I'm glad that the Pakistani government at the center acknowledges that there is no difference between the good and the bad Taliban. But Imran Khan's party that runs the government still believes that you can play this double game. You can talk to the good Taliban, you can fight the bad Taliban. Well, Pakistan and the world will continue to bleed till the time this difference is not erased. Sadia Khan for joining us tonight. Thank you very much. It's the worst terror attack Pakistan has seen on its soil. The Taliban has the blood of over 130 children on its hands. Throughout the day, we saw images of kids being rescued from the army public school in Peshawar. All of them had fear writ large on their faces. And for the parents who sent their children to school, the day turned out to be a nightmare.
Their children had cheerfully left for school in the morning. Just a few hours later, the children were back, their clothes soaked in blood, their eyes lifeless, their bodies limp.
मेरे दो भतीजे हैं, एक शहीद हो गया यार। ये मेरे सारे बच्चे हैं ना यार। ये अब्दुल्ला शाह नाम है यार। यार मुझे ये बताइए, एक माँ बाप 20-20 साल अपनी मेहनत कर रहे हैं यार, और आने वाले ने 20 मिनट भी नहीं लगाए यार। नवाज शरीफ के साथ, सदर के साथ 100 गाड़ियां फिर रही हैं यार। बस है ना यार, खुदा को मानो यार। यार पाक आर्मी आ जाओ यार, तुम ले लो यार, ये नहीं कर सकते यार। बस है ना यार, खुदा का वास्ता है, रसूल का वास्ता है यार।
Words failed at the unspeakable brutality unleashed by the Taliban terrorists. Eyes were brimming, hearts were full. Bleeding students were wheeled into hospitals. Those who could not survive were laid to rest in coffins.
दहशतगर्द जो है, उनका कोई दीन ईमान नहीं है। वो किसी खुदा को नहीं मानते, किसी आइन कानून को नहीं मानते। उनको इतनी शर्म नहीं आई कि इन मासूम बच्चों का कसूर क्या था। वो दहशतगर्द भी बाप होंगे, किसी के बेटे होंगे।
पाकिस्तान की नाकामी है। देखिए, एक इस वक्त ये वक्त नहीं है कि किसी को ब्लेम करना, लेकिन हम सब की नाकामी है, क्योंकि बच्चे तो मरे, हम सब के बच्चे हैं।
Those who had survived narrated those moments when they had come face to face with death and escaped by a whisker.
टांगों पर सर पे गोलियां मारी, और फिर जो है ना, हमारी मैडम को चला दिया। हमारी मैडम को चला के बस उसके बाद फायरिंग होती रही। वो कमरे में आते रहे, लेकिन हम हिले नहीं है, क्योंकि जो हिलता वो उसको मार देते हैं।
Their barbaric message had been to kill the older children. Savages had slaughtered Pakistan's children. The world would remember 16 December 2014 as a black day for humanity. Headlines today in sympathy with the people of Pakistan.